is half tutorial on how to make a Christmas TreePee for your child or dog, and half reminding me how to put this back together next year when I attempt to do this. So I looked at a lot of different examples online of different things people use to make their Christmas TreePees, and I'm genuinely not sure how they stay standing. This is made with 5 2x2s that I have sanded down and stained. I bought them at 8 foot, cut them to around 7 foot, and then began the piecing together process. So what's really important is you're going to want to number each of the poles. About 6 inches down, I bored a hole through each one and put a number on one side. So they're always threaded through one side, not the other. So thread through number 1, number 2, number 3. The first 3, this one, and this one, create the solid structure in the center. Use paracord, and I don't know if you can see, but I've put a nail in here into the paracord, and that creates a nice firm needle to be able to go through the holes that I put through the wood. So tie the first 3, and then once they are in the general shape that you want, then you're going to level the feet as best you can. What that looked like for me was putting a board down on the floor, marking a line, and cutting it. What's really tricky about the TreePee in any configuration that you make is that these are neither square to the outside or to the inside, nor are they square to the floor. So I kind of had to hold the saw at an angle to cut, not just at an angle to the floor, but at an angle kind of through the heart of the wood. It was very tricky to do. It would not work well with like a box saw. It was definitely one that required a skill saw and had to hold it at an angle. So once I had these 3, if you notice on the floor, all of these make a pentagon, and this side is bigger to be able to have a wider opening. This, if there was 6, this would be in the shape of a hexagon, but instead it is a pentagon with 5, with just this side being wider. So once you have your 3 where you want them to be, then numbers 4 and 5 come in the middle to create the maximum amount of base at the bottom. And yours may be a different height than mine, maybe a different width than mine, depending on your space. But for me, as I was putting it together, I realized that I needed something to hold it steady, because they were splaying out or they were very easily tipping over. And so what I ended up using was the locking rim for a 55-gallon drum. So if you can find those, ideally someone you know has one that's a little rusty that you can just spray paint like I did. But they can also be like 20 bucks online from like a Tractor Supply store. You can buy one. This one, the diameter is 20.5 inches. The diameter wouldn't matter so much as long as it works for whatever width and height your tree is. This was about the perfect height for the top of the opening for me. So I did not want all 5 up against this. I felt like it did not give good stability. The really wide hexagon is part of what gave it good stability for me. So what I ended up doing is cutting some 2x2 pieces, creating a block so that it created the right amount of spacing that I wanted in order to be able to put the feet where they needed to be. Then I drilled a hole through the ring into the wood. These are not flush or straight because, like I said earlier, all of these are twisted and tilted at different angles towards the center. That creates the biggest challenge. So what you have to do is just accept the fact that your screw is going to go into just off the side of the corner, or just off the middle of this side. The only ones that actually go in straight are number 4. Number 5 is also at a curve. And had I realized I was going to be attaching 4 and 5 this way, I would not have put the latch where it is. I would have positioned the latch in between, probably not out front because I think kids would play with it, but I would have put it in between one of these. So as you're thinking about it, and as you're not making it as you go like I did, you'll want to be aware of the latch and putting it very strategically in between, so that way you don't have to drill through that double, triple layer of metal like I did. But it all worked out just fine. And the reason why I ended up screwing all of it together is I wanted something that if the dog bumps into it, it's just gonna move the tree over. And I wanted something that if my child pushes out at the bottom, it is not going to splay out. Another thing that you're going to want that helps with that is these little feet, and I can put a link to the Amazon list in my comments. These little feet are something I actually use for my chairs and my dining room table. They protect hardwood floors, but they also give grip. So I have other protectors that allow slide. They have felt on the bottom. That's not really what you want for this, especially when you are setting up the middle three. This was incredibly frustrating. Future Sarah, you're going to be frustrated. You may want another set of hands. The middle three were really hard. I knew where they went because I had numbered all of them, right? And I went in through the same side. And I also knew which side should be facing in, because not only was there a pre-drilled hole, but also I put an X next to the hole, because as I was doing things and positioning things and supporting things, there's a couple extra holes. So I marked where it was supposed to go into the ring, and I had marked up there. I still had a hard time getting those first three to go where I wanted them to go, partly because they were slipping on the floor, partly because I was just trying to tinker it back to the way that it had been. If you find an easier way to navigate that, let me know, but it's a little bit of a challenge. But these feet really helped once I put them on, because then they weren't sliding underneath. If you have carpet, you won't have the slide problem. You may not need these, but if you have hardwood floor like I do, especially with these first three, you really want to have the feet on there, because it gives it grip and makes it so it doesn't just push over super easy. So here is our basic shape. This is going to be the opening. What I'm going to be doing next is placing the garland on here and going around. And once I have done that, I will make another video so that way you can see exactly what it looks like. Things to keep in mind are trying to go around as horizontally as possible, because it makes it look the most tree-like as the garland pokes out from the side. This particular design is not necessarily made to be solid. There are some designs out there that utilize sheets, either dark sheets to fill in the sparseness of garland, if you maybe use more expensive garland so you're not using as much of it, or white to add to the brightness inside for the child. For me, I wanted to use nice garland because I knew if it didn't look good, I wasn't going to use it. And so I purposely dyed this wood so that it would look good, slightly see-through. It would allow in the most light for her, while still making it look the fullest. So what I'm going to be doing is stringing the garland around, making sure that I have enough all the way to the bottom, and then I'll be able to kind of place it where I want to, and then I will be putting tack nails in, so every row of garland that goes around will have a tack nail that it rests on. So when I put this back together next year, take it apart and then put it back together, I will just be following the nail trail because I already know where it will be. As of right now, my plan for here, so it will go around and cover this fully, and then when it gets to this side, then I'm going to put a tack nail here and one here and have it go down, create a square, and go back. I'm going to be estimating initially how far apart each of the lines are. So there will probably be a few nail holes as I adjust, but that is my plan, is to then just curve it, go back around, come to this side, do the same thing, curve it and go back around, so that it maintains these nice straight layers on the outside. Another thing I like about this hexagon design is that I'm going to put, you can't see this very well, but I've got a hallway behind me, and I'm going to put the opening here slightly angled towards the wall, so that coming in the front door, you see a really nice tree shape. And from the living room, you see a really nice tree shape, and yet there's this entrance to the cave. So that was another thing that was really important and really what influenced the shape that I chose in how I arranged the blocks, because I wanted it to look like a nice Christmas tree from multiple angles, which may or may not be important to you. Some people might like this wider because they can stick it flat against the wall and then just open it up if they have a kid that wants to come in and play inside the tree for a little while. So this is my Christmas tree pea, and I will update you as soon as the garland is on. Okay, I just defrocked the tree, and so now I can talk to you about the garland and how it worked out. So as you can see, the tree has a good thickness. In the spots where there's coverage from the front and the back, it looks fairly solid. This is what you can see from the back, and when it's lit up, it doesn't even look that sparse. And so I was really pleased with the coverage. It ended up being 13 9-foot garlands, and these are nice full garlands. They're a mixture of fir and pine, I would say. I'll include the link below. I got it from Michael's. They're on sale prices during Christmas. Made it the perfect price. It covers from the top to about 6 inches from the bottom. I have a dog, and so one of the things I have to think about is dog fur, and I didn't want any fur in this fake tree. So allowing for a little bit underneath there, allowed there to be no fur on the tree. If you did want it for a 7-footer to go to top to bottom, I would say 14. At the base, it's one full garland this way and back. I went with a lighted garland, which I'll show you lit up, but probably won't keep lit up. They're LED, and so on cameras, I find that they flicker really bad. I didn't want it to be distracting. So let me plug it in so you can see what it looks like. Voila. Oh, actually, by letting in some daylight, it's not flickering very bad. Okay, well, I'll leave it on then. So this is what it looked like, and you can see with the light on how much fuller the back looks. I was really pleased with this. I went according to plan, as I told you in the last video when it was just a frame. I kept the garland very horizontal as I went around. I spaced them probably, how many inches apart is this? Somewhere between, probably from nail to nail, it's 4 inches. I would say roughly 4 inches is what it ended up being. It was tricky, you know, depending on the exact height of where this is. I wanted to make sure that the metal was covered. And I also didn't want to have to buy too much more garland because it's nice garland, so it costs a little bit more. So I went around and then I did what I said I would do, putting tack nails, bending it down, going back. The tricky part is if you get down and realize, oh no, I want it distributed differently, or I need more garland, I had to then go back and unwind it. So that was a little tricky until the nails were in. But that won't be tricky for reassembling the tree. And that's what I love about what I've designed, is that this is going to be consistent each time I put it up. So because the nails are there, I will be able to know exactly where the garland is and easily put it back on. Let's see. What I found is that we used a dog bed inside there, not necessarily for the dog. In fact, we kept her out of the tree every now and again. She relaxed in there, but it was mostly for my 4-year-old. I found that on my hardwood floor, in order for her to spend significant time in there, there needed to be something soft. She's highly sensory. So a dog bed was actually perfect. I went with just a $20 version from Ross. It was super soft, and that just got her. She loved laying in this thing. This is rectangular. It worked just fine. I would say my ideal would have been the beautiful round thick firm one from Petco. I just wasn't willing to spend $80 for a cushion I was going to use for about 4 weeks. So that would be the ideal if you want the Pinterest version of this tree. But if you've got 20 bucks, go to Ross, find the softest one, and throw it under there. It'll be perfect. So I put it all around, and then I used tack nails to hold it in place. And so as I take it off, I will leave the tack nails there, which will make it a little bit trickier for storage. So thinking about storing this tree in between uses, I'm gonna just kind of pile them up on L brackets high up in my garage, but I'm going to put some sort of safety strap, because if these were to fall down, they would really hurt someone because they have nails sticking about an inch out from them. After I put them around, positioned them where they needed to be, I went with nails, tacked them in, and I'm assuming you know what tack nails are. They're about 1.5 inches, very small, so they just set on there. I mean, I could still move it if I wanted to, but setting it on there is enough. So it's, I hammered them in until there was, you know, just enough to hold it without being pokey, so there was no danger to it. Then I had to go through and I had to pull all of the branches outward. So when you first put it on, there's going to be some poking in, some poking out, and it will just make it look really full. And you're going to just pull some down to cover certain holes, some over to cover certain holes, and you'll just kind of get the look that you want. Storage wise, I have 13 9-foot garlands. Judging by the box, the size box that it came in from Michael's, I bought the 27-gallon Tough Totes. I'm hoping and expecting them all to fit into 2 of them. They're fluffed out now, so when they came, they were very flat, and so I was judging like, okay, the boxes that came in plus fluffing should be 2. And I can leave that in the comments as to how many boxes it actually took when I take it apart. Something to think about is you're going to need an alternative tree topper. So I chose not to use a topper. I wanted something that was full, took up the entire height of my room, and as you can see here, you can kind of arrange so that it gives a nice tree peak. This tree looked gorgeous. It looked like a real tree from all the way around. I had people ask me if it was a real tree until they saw this, and I had people just assume it was just a nice artificial tree that I had gotten from somewhere, and then they saw the inside and they're like, oh my gosh, this was such a highlight. It was really fun. When my daughter's friends came over, all the kids were inside there. It held up really well to kids being in it. So it has a little bit of give, obviously, like anything would, and like everything should, in order to not break. But it was real sturdy. At no point did it feel unsafe at all. And it was a highlight of the season. But you have something up here that you're not necessarily going to be able to stick a topper down in. Most toppers have a cone-shaped, bottom, and so that's definitely not going to work. If you got a topper that just had a stick and was short, maybe. You could also potentially choose which side is the front, and you could stick a stick topper, behind the paracord. That would be an option. It would create a clear front of the tree. The circumference at the widest point of all 5 of the poles is 21 inches. So know that. And I have only 11 inches between the top and the top of the ceiling. So I'm trying to figure out, do I want to make a creative tree topper for next year? Do I want to just leave it? I could put a simple metal sign with the word joy or hope in the front. I could put a simple sign with a metal star or something. There's lots of options you could do, but it would also provide the opportunity to maybe create something bigger you could set down on it, as long as the inside was 21 inches in circumference, and that it fit down over it enough to be solid. Another thing you're going to have to think about is there's a limitation with regards to ornaments. Because this is a very shallow tree, you're really not going to be able to do ornaments any bigger than this. This is a medium-sized ornament. I usually have large, medium, and then I would say standard size. These are probably the biggest. You kind of have to choose where to put them, nestle them within. Another thing I found that really helped me, I also am one who likes to put things in real trees along that branch. So maybe sprigs of cranberries, or I've done pearls before. This year's kind of new thing was the gingerbread snowflake, which if it had been a real tree, I think I would have just kind of put against against the branch, but you cannot put things inside. A, your child's gonna mess with it. B, there's nothing to clip it to. So what I chose to do is I got some of these little alligator clips. I can also put those in the link. And so you just pinch these. And so I made it short enough so that I could kind of find the spot I wanted it to be at and then gently clip the alligator clip, and so it would stay in the tree. I did that with those. I also did that with these cute little mittens that I found. Anything that's on a stem that you would want to put in your tree. These alligator clips are fantastic. I cut the stem short. I used hot glue on the inside of the alligator clip, and then I wrapped it with floral tape. Pretty happy with how that turned out. Something to think about as well is connecting the garlands. So I'll tell you what I did, and maybe post an update in the future if I find a better way. So these garlands, the end of them, they have these thick wire, you know, so the wire of the garland, and then it creates this loop that they just kind of wrap back around itself for a little bit. I unwrapped it, I went through the other loop and then wrapped that around the branch. That I do think is going to be very cumbersome for attaching and unattaching every year. I can do that. It will be sturdy and secure. What I'm going to consider is what it would look like to maybe take one of the loops, and because you can't also just connect it to the loops, then there will be a gap in between. So you're trying to really tighten the space between the garlands as far as how they're attached on the wire. And then there's lots of extra that you have to do with regards to the plugs, since these are lit. So with that, I just wound up the extra wire, put a zip tie on it, so you know the plugs are right next to each other. But for the wire, that's tricky. So what I'm considering is taking that really thick wire, bending it around maybe like something the diameter of like a thing of rebar to create a circle in one, and then finding some sort of clip. I don't think a hook would be enough, maybe with the tension, but probably some sort of clip that then I put the clip on the other loop and tighten that up so the loop is very small right at the end of the wire. So then I would just be clipping them together very close like this, and then putting together the lights, which will be right there, and then moving on to the next. So that's definitely something to consider. But this was wonderful. It brought so much delight this year, and I'm thrilled with how it turned out. So if you have any questions, go ahead and comment on the video. I hope that you're able to make one and that it brings you joy in your holiday season like it did for ours. This is well made, and I foresee that it will be just like this for the next 4 to 5 years.